Hey guys, it's Chase with Sherpa Equipment Company. Today we're going to be installing our Princeton roof rack on this Sport Edition 4th Gen 4Runner. So first step is we're going to be uninstalling the stock roof rack. The Sport Edition does have a different roof rack than the other versions, but same idea, it's going to apply to both. Alright, so for this step, we recommend using some kind of plastic trim removal tool. If you don't have that, you can use a screwdriver. Just keep in mind that you might scratch your paint a little bit easier. But to do this, you're going to get your flat edge, whatever you have, get it up under the plastic cover on it, and then lightly apply pressure evenly around it, and it should pop up relatively easily. Hopefully you don't break any of the tabs, but if you do, not a huge deal. Now that we got that off though, we will go ahead and remove these bolts holding the rack to the roof. So now we're going to be removing these roof bolts, and to do that on this truck at least, you're going to need a T40 Torx bit. And one thing you want to make sure you do is when you're loosening them, you want to apply even pressure on both of them instead of taking one out before the other, just so you don't lose that plate that's in the roof. And once you get them both fairly loose, you can go ahead and just remove them completely. And so once you finish the first one, you can go ahead and finish the other three, and then you can just easily remove the entire rack as one. Now that we got all four corners out, we can just go ahead and remove the roof rack. It should pop up fairly easily. Now that the rack's off the truck, you want to go ahead and clean out where the mounts will be going. This will ensure a good seal on our rubber mounting feet. So now that we got the rack off the truck, we're going to go through what will be in your package that comes from us. You'll have your set of side plates. You'll have two boxes with your crossbars in them. You'll have your fairing, and you will also have your hardware that is attached to your fairing. And then in your hardware package, you will have your mounting feet separated from your mounting feet rubber to your main hardware for the rack, and then you will also have a separate section for your fairing hardware. So the next step now is we're going to be installing our mounting feet to our crossbars. Alright, for this rack we're going to be taking two of our crossbars out of our boxes for the mounting feet. Now that we're ready to put the mounting feet on the crossbars, you're going to want to go ahead and separate 8 T-nuts, 8 1/4-inch hexes, along with 8 1/4-inch washers. These T-nuts are super easy to install. All you need to do is put them in an angle and then push them flat in the channel. And it does not matter which side goes to which direction, either way will work. Now that we got the T-nuts and the crossbars, we're going to go ahead and take our mounting feet. You're going to want to make sure you got your fronts and your rear separated, and we're going to go ahead and install those onto the crossbar. All you want to do here is make sure that the outside of the mounting foot is facing the outside of the crossbar. Then you'll take your 1/4 hex head bolts and loosely start them into the T-nuts. Now that we got the mounting feet on the crossbars, you just want to make sure that all of the bolts are only loosely threaded into the T-nuts. That way you can slide them and adjust to the tracks on the roof of your vehicle. Now that we got the mounting feet mounted to the crossbars, we're going to go ahead and take our rubber and our M8 roof bolts with their bonded washers. The bonded washers are a little bit tight, but that is how they're supposed to be, and you just need to slide them all the way to the top before you install the rubber. Now we can come to the top of the vehicle and install our rubber spacers. And only thing you want to make sure here is that you install the thin side of the rubber facing the middle of the vehicle. And you're going to just slide them down over the rubber tubes, plastic tubes that are on the roof. They should go on pretty easily, and it should be a nice snug fit. And if you're having trouble getting the rubber onto the roof, you can simply remove these aluminum spacers and install those first, and then put the rubber right back over the spacers. Now that we got our rubber spacers in, we can go ahead and grab our crossbars with the mounting feet attached and install them onto the roof. Now that we got the crossbar up here, one thing you want to make sure is that there's a small notch on the front of our mounting feet, and the notches on our mounting feet always face the front end of the vehicle. So as long as that's facing forward, you are good to install your roof bolts. To do this, simply drop them in and then start threading them lightly until we're ready to tighten it down. Now we have all the bolts threaded into the roof lightly, and at this point everything on the rack is still loose, nothing is tightened down, including the bolts going into the bottom of the crossbar. And this is going to be important for the next step when we adjust to make sure the crossbar is centered. So the next step is centering up the crossbar, and to do this we like to measure from the inside face of the mounting foot to the end of the crossbar, and to do that we'll just take a tape measure. It's helpful to have a buddy help you if you can. And we'll go ahead and measure from that face to the crossbar. On this truck and this rack, our measurement to center the crossbar is about 4 3/4 in the rear. Now that we got our crossbar centered, we're going to go ahead and tighten up the bolts that run through the bottom of the mounting foot to the crossbar. You don't need to over tighten these. It doesn't take a whole lot to hold strong. And a good idea after you're done tightening them is to check your measurements again, just to make sure everything's still square. We're going to repeat the same process for the front crossbar, and this one is about right over 4, about 4 1/16. Now that we got our crossbars tightened up, we can go ahead and get our side plates. So now we're ready to put the side plates on the truck, and for this it's going to be helpful if you have a friend who can give you a hand. It's best to start with 4 socket button bolts and their washers, and then we'll grab the side plate. And to line this up, you're going to go ahead and find the small slots on your side plate, and that'll be your mounting slot for the first crossbars. And you're going to want to leave these loose so that way you can have forward and back adjustment, and now we'll do the other side. Next we're going to assemble our fairing. For this you're going to need your fairing, a single crossbar, and then your remaining fairing hardware. Alright, now that we got the fairing unwrapped, we're going to take one of our crossbars, and you want to make sure that you're going to install this on the back side of the fairing. To do that, you can see your letters in the top corner. You want to make sure you can read those. So to install the fairing onto the crossbar, we like to set the crossbar on top, and then that way you can get your holes lined up with right about where the T-nuts need to go. Once you have those installed, you're going to want to take your fairing, set it on top of the crossbar, and gather your remaining hardware and loosely start threading these into each of your T-nuts. If your fairing's not perfectly lined up, you can just slide it across the crossbar and then loosely assemble your fairing hardware into the T-nuts. Right, now all of our fairing hardware is installed. You can go ahead and line it up so it's flush on each side with the crossbar, and then tighten it down. Our fairing's now assembled. We can go ahead and set this aside. Good time to grab your buddy again, and we're going to get the rest of the crossbars up on the rack. So on each of the crossbars, you're just going to want to leave them loose. That way you can adjust as you put the rest of them up. Make sure you get even spacing and you get good fitment on the vehicle. Now we're going to install the remainder of the crossbars. One good thing to check is before you tighten all of your crossbars down, you want to make sure your mounting feet crossbars are both evenly spaced on the mounting slots. That way you have a square rack. Helpful tip is if you tighten one side of the crossbar first to the side plate, it'll automatically square up the other side to ensure that they're straight across. And again, with these, you do not want to over tighten them. It doesn't take a whole lot. Once your last crossbars are installed, you can go ahead and make sure you're happy with the spacing, and then you can go ahead and tighten all of your socket buttons down, minus the ones that are attached to the crossbars with the mounting feet on them. You're going to want to leave those loose so you can still move it forward and back to adjust to the roof line. Now that all the crossbars are tightened down, we can go ahead and grab our fairing. This will be the last one we install on the rack. We usually like to line the bottom of the edge trim up to the bottom of the side plate. However, if you do run into any noise issues or wind or rattling, any kind of issues, you can simply adjust up and down here to resolve your problem. And if adjusting your fairing doesn't resolve your problem, you can also very easily slide your rack, the entire rack, forward or backwards, and that usually should solve the problem. Once you're happy with the fitment on the truck, you can go ahead and tighten down your last 4 on each side of your socket button bolts, and then we'll go ahead and tighten down the bolts that are running into the roof as well. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and tighten down the roof bolts. With these bonded washers, you like to tighten it to about where the bonded washer is flat. It's very easy to over tighten these, so as long as it's flat, you should be good to go. So the rack's now installed. Looks great on the truck. It's a good idea after about 100-150 miles or so to go back through, check all your hardware again, just to make sure nothing came undone or loose. Other than that, if you have any questions during the install or concerns, feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email, and now you can adventure with confidence.